Hello there, and welcome to my channel. I'm so glad you found your way here today. Tonight we sit with something almost everyone has felt, yet few can explain. And before we begin, if these calm explorations are something you enjoy, consider liking and subscribing. It helps others find their way here too. Now let's begin. Think of the last time you woke from a dream, and a few days later, watched some small piece of it appear in waking life. A face you had not thought of in years. A phone call you somehow expected. That quiet shiver of recognition is far from rare. When researchers survey ordinary people, somewhere between 40 and 60% say they have had at least one dream they believed showed them the future. That is not a fringe experience. That is most of the people you have ever met, sitting on a train, standing in a kitchen, carrying the same private sense that sleep once handed them a glimpse of what was coming. The belief crosses every border and every century. It belongs to no single culture and no single age. What makes this so striking is not that a few unusual people report it, but that it is woven into the common fabric of being human. The feeling is real, vivid, and deeply convincing. The question that will carry us through tonight is gentler and stranger than it first appears. Not whether dreams can show the future, but why so many of us are so certain that they have. There is an old assumption that sleep is when the mind goes dark, that the brain, like a house at night, simply switches off its lights and waits for morning. It isn't. Picture the brain as a city seen from above. You might expect it to dim into stillness as the body lies motionless beneath the blankets. Instead, during the dreaming stage of sleep, whole districts blaze back to life. The sleeping brain in REM burns nearly as much energy as it does when you are wide awake reading these very words. The body is still, the eyes are closed, the muscles have gone slack, and yet, inside the skull the activity is fierce and bright. Blood flow rises. Neurons fire in dense, coordinated storms. Oxygen is consumed at rates that rival a waking afternoon. This is the deep paradox at the heart of dreaming. The most outwardly quiet hours of your life are among the most inwardly active. And here is what that means for everything we will explore tonight. A dream is not the faint residue of a resting mind. It is the product of an organ working at nearly full intensity, building entire worlds, while you believe you are doing nothing at all. Here is a question worth holding for a moment. Of all the dreams you have ever had, how many do you actually remember? In 2014, researchers at the University of Edinburgh designed a careful experiment to test something subtle about memory. They gave people two diaries to read. One held invented dreams. The other held invented daily events. Some of the events matched the dreams. Most did not. Later, the participants were asked what they could recall. The result was clean and quietly revealing. People remembered the dreams that appeared to come true far more often than the dreams that led nowhere. The hits stayed. The misses slipped away. Now carry that finding back into your own life. You may dream of an old friend 100 times with nothing following. On the one occasion that friend happens to call the next morning, that single dream burns itself into memory while the 99 empty ones quietly vanish. The mind is not lying to you. It is simply keeping the matches and discarding the rest, exactly as this study showed. What feels like a record of prophecy is often a record of selective remembering. And the gap between the two is where the entire mystery begins to live. Long before brain scans, before sleep laboratories, before the word neuron existed, someone had already reached toward an explanation. Imagine a thinker in ancient Greece, walking beneath olive trees, turning over the same question that troubles us tonight. Aristotle, more than 2,000 years ago, wrote a short treatise on prophecy in sleep. He was skeptical of the idea that God sent dreams as messages. Instead, he proposed something remarkably modern. He suggested that some seemingly prophetic dreams arise from faint signals inside the body, changes too quiet for the waking mind to notice, but loud enough to surface once the distractions of the day fall away. A small ache, the first stirring of an illness, a tension the conscious self had overlooked. In sleep, with the noise of waking life silenced, these whispers could rise into a dream that later seemed to predict the very thing the body had already begun to sense. Consider how far ahead of his time that was. Aristotle was describing in plain language the idea that the dreaming mind can read the body's own quiet warnings. Across more than 20 centuries, science has refined that insight, rather than overturned it, which tells us this puzzle is far older than any of us, and far from fully solved. Let me offer you a number, not to impress but to change how one feeling looks from the inside. Most people dream multiple times every single night, whether or not a single one is remembered by morning. If you have around 5 dreams a night, that comes to roughly 1,800 dreams in a year. Over a long life, the total climbs past 100,000. Now picture all of those dreams as tickets in an enormous slow lottery of coincidence. With that many dreams drawing on every person you know, every place you have been, every fear and hope you carry, it becomes not just possible but statistically certain that some of them will by pure chance line up with something that later happens. The surprise would be if no dream ever matched reality. This is the part that feels counterintuitive. A single dream coming true seems to demand a special explanation. Seen against the vast background of all the dreams that came true, of nothing, it is simply the expected result of large numbers quietly at work. The coincidence is real. The matching is real. What the number reveals is that such matches are not rare exceptions to chance, but the ordinary arithmetic of a mind that dreams 1,000 times a year. It is strange to think that the most vivid territory of human experience was charted within living memory. For most of history, no one knew that sleep had distinct stages at all. Then, in 1953, in a laboratory at the University of Chicago, 2 researchers named Eugene Aserinsky and Nathaniel Kleitman noticed something no one had formally recorded. As sleepers lay still, their eyes would suddenly begin darting rapidly beneath closed lids in bursts that returned again and again across the night. They called it rapid eye movement sleep, REM for short. When they woke people during these bursts, the sleepers reported vivid story-like dreams. The connection was unmistakable. Those flickering eyes marked the very stage where the mind builds its richest dreams. Sit with how recent that is. The wheel, the written word, the map of the stars, all ancient. Yet the discovery that dreaming has its own measurable signature in the body is younger than many people alive today. Everything we now understand about why dreams feel the way they do begins at that moment, with 2 men watching eyes move in the dark. The science of the dreaming mind is not an old science. It is barely older than your grandparents, and it is still unfolding. Consider what should happen when you dream of running. Your brain sends the signals to sprint, to swing your arms, to push off the ground. And yet you lie perfectly still. The reason is one of the quiet marvels of the sleeping body. During REM sleep, the stage where the most vivid dreams unfold, the brain sends a deliberate command down the spinal cord that switches off nearly every skeletal muscle. Your arms, your legs, the muscles that would carry you across a room, all fall into a temporary paralysis. Only a few keep working: the heart, the diaphragm that keeps you breathing, and the small muscles that move the eyes. So you can dream of leaping a fence while your body never twitches. This is not a flaw. It is protection. Without it, people would physically act out their dreams, and in the rare disorder where this safeguard fails, they do exactly that, sometimes injuring themselves or others as they fight invisible attackers in their sleep. Picture the precision of that arrangement. The mind is free to run wild, to fly, to flee, to fall, while the body is gently held in place, kept safe from the very stories it is telling itself. Every vivid dream you have ever had unfolded inside that careful stillness, a wild interior set against a motionless frame. Why is it that in a dream you can speak with someone long dead, walk through a house that keeps changing shape and feel no surprise at all? In waking life, a region behind your forehead called the prefrontal cortex works constantly. It is the brain's center of judgment and logic, the part that checks whether things make sense, that notices contradictions, that says, wait, this is impossible. During REM sleep, this region grows markedly quieter. The lights in that district of the city dim, while the emotional and image-making areas blaze on. With the inner critic muted, the dream proceeds unchallenged. A staircase that leads into the ocean draws no objection. A stranger who is also your mother seems perfectly reasonable. The strangeness only becomes visible later, once you wake, and the prefrontal cortex returns to full power and asks how you ever believed any of it. This is the mechanism behind that peculiar dream logic everyone knows. It is not that the dreaming mind has no sense. It is that the part responsible for sense has briefly stepped back. And here is the quiet implication. The same silencing that makes dreams feel absurd in the morning is exactly what lets them feel utterly real while you are inside them. There is a rhythm to your nights as regular as tides, though you have never watched it happen. When you fall asleep, you do not drop straight into dreaming. Instead, you descend through lighter and then deeper stages of quiet, dreamless sleep. The body slowing the brain waves, stretching long and slow. Then about 90 minutes after you first drift off, you rise back toward the surface and enter your first stretch of REM sleep, the dreaming stage. It is usually brief at first, only a few minutes, but the cycle repeats through the night roughly every 90 minutes, and each time the REM period grows longer than the one before. By the final cycle near dawn, you may be dreaming for half an hour or more at a stretch. Picture the whole night as a series of slow waves, each carrying you down into stillness and back up into dreaming again and again. This is why the dreams you remember most often come from the early morning, the long ones just before waking. Your nights are not a flat expanse of unconsciousness. They are structured, cyclical, almost tidal, and the dreaming has its appointed hours within that steady repeating architecture. The discovery that opened the entire science of dreaming began in the most ordinary domestic setting. In the early 1950s, a struggling graduate student named Eugene Aserinsky needed subjects to study, and he had little money and less equipment. So he brought in his own 8-year-old son, Armand, and in a borrowed room at the University of Chicago, he taped electrodes around the boy's eyes and let him fall asleep. Through the night, an old recording machine scratched out the movements onto paper. At certain intervals, the pens began swinging wildly, tracing bursts of rapid eye motion. Aserinsky at first suspected the equipment was broken. It was not. He was watching the physical signature of dreaming appear on paper for the first time in scientific history. A father, a sleeping child, a second-hand machine, and a finding that would reshape how humanity understood the sleeping mind. There is something fitting in how humble the scene was. No grand laboratory, no fanfare, just a tired student trying to make do, stumbling onto a hidden country that had been inside every sleeping human all along. The next time you watch someone sleep and see their eyes flicker beneath the lids, you are seeing exactly what he saw, the visible trace of a dream in progress. Have you noticed how a dream can flood you with feeling far stronger than anything an ordinary afternoon brings? Deep in the brain sit two small almond-shaped clusters called the amygdala, the core of how we process emotion, especially fear and intensity. You might assume these would rest while you sleep. Instead, during REM, they do the opposite. The amygdala becomes more active in dreaming sleep, than it often is during waking hours. At the same time, the rational prefrontal cortex has gone quiet. So the dreaming brain is a place where emotion runs at full volume, while reason sits in the dark. This is why dreams can carry such overwhelming dread, such piercing grief, such soaring joy. Feelings that linger into the morning long after the dream's events have dissolved. The story may make no sense, but the emotion it left behind is undeniable. Understand this balance, and a great deal falls into place. A dream that felt like a warning, that woke you with your heart pounding, and a certainty that something was wrong, drew that power not from knowledge of the future, but from an emotional center burning brighter in sleep than it ever does by day. The feeling was genuine. Its source was inside you. Every day, you take in more than you could ever hold. Thousands of sights, words, sensations, most of them destined to vanish. So how does the mind decide what to keep? A great deal of that sorting happens while you sleep in a process called memory consolidation. During the night, the brain replays fragments of the day, strengthening the connections worth preserving and letting the rest fade. Experiences are quietly moved from fragile short-term storage into more lasting form. This is partly why a good night's sleep helps you remember what you studied, and why exhaustion leaves the day a blur. Dreaming appears to be tangled up in this work. The images that drift through your dreams are often stitched from the very material the brain is busy filing away: recent faces, lingering worries, half-finished thoughts. Think of sleep as a librarian, moving through the day's arrivals, shelving some volumes carefully and sending others to be discarded. The dream is something like the glimpse you catch of that work in progress, fragments of memory passing through the hands of a mind, deciding what you will carry forward. What feels like a random nighttime story may be the visible edge of one of the most important things your brain does, the steady labor of deciding who you will remember being. Ask most people what a dream is, and they will describe something seen. A face, a room, a landscape unfolding behind closed eyes. Yet that assumption quietly leaves someone out. People who have been blind since birth dream as richly as anyone, but their dreams contain no images at all. Instead, their dreams are built from the senses they live by while awake. Sound fills them, voices and footsteps and the texture of a room's echo. Touch shapes them. The feel of surfaces, of warmth of hands. Smell and taste and emotion carry the rest. Researchers who study this find that a person's dreams draw only on the sensory world they actually know. Someone blind from birth has never gathered visual material, so the dreaming mind has nothing visual to assemble. This tells us something important about where dreams come from. They are not broadcasts from some outside source painting scenes into the mind. They are constructed entirely from what a person has already lived and sensed. Hold that beside the idea of a dream showing the future. A dream can only ever be built from what the dreamer has known, felt, feared, or imagined. It works with the materials at hand, and those materials are always, without exception, drawn from the dreamer's own experience. There is a reason a stranger you passed on the street can turn up in your dream that very night. More than a century ago, observers of dreams noticed a pattern they called day residue. The events, faces, and stray impressions of the previous day have a habit of reappearing in our dreams, often reshuffled into something strange. The colleague you spoke with becomes a figure in an unfamiliar house. The song you half heard plays in a dream from somewhere you cannot find. The argument you avoided returns transformed. Modern dream research has confirmed this again and again. A large share of dream content can be traced back to recent waking experience, especially the hours just before sleep. The mind does not invent from nothing. It reaches for what is freshest and nearest, then bends and recombines it. Picture the day as a tide that pulls back at night, leaving fragments scattered across the shore of sleep. and the dreaming mind walking that shore, gathering pieces into new shapes. Now consider how this shapes the feeling of prophecy. When a dream seems to anticipate tomorrow, it is very often built from the residue of today. The same concerns and people who are already on your mind and already likely to appear in your life again soon. Why do we so often dream of the things we dread? The missed exam, the lost child, the accident we cannot stop imagining. One of the most studied features of dreaming is its pull toward threat. Dreams lean heavily toward danger, conflict, and things going wrong far more than toward calm or pleasure. In dreams, the mind seems to rehearse what could harm us, running through frightening scenarios while the body lies safe and still. This is part of why a feared event can appear in a dream before it ever happens in life. You are not seeing the future. You are dreaming about a worry you already carry, and worries by their nature are about things that might come to pass. When one of them does, the earlier dream snaps into focus as a seeming premonition. The dream of the loved one falling ill arriving before the diagnosis often springs from a fear that was already alive in the dreamer. Here is the quiet truth beneath it. The dreaming brain is not a window onto what will happen. It is a rehearsal space for what frightens you, and the future sometimes simply walks into the scene the fear had already built. Notice when your worst dreams tend to strike. Rarely in the first heavy hours of the night. Far more often in the grey stretch just before morning when you surface gasping with the day already near. There is a clear reason rooted in the architecture of sleep. As the night progresses, the dreaming stages grow longer with each cycle. Early REM periods may last only a few minutes, but the ones near dawn can stretch on much longer, giving vivid and frightening dreams more room to unfold and intensify. The longer the REM period, the more elaborate the dream it can carry, and the more likely a nightmare is to build toward its peak. This is why so many people wake from their most disturbing dreams in the early morning rather than at midnight. The timing is not random or meaningful in itself. It is simply when the dreaming brain has its longest, freest stretch of activity. Consider what this means for the dreams that haunt us most. The nightmare that woke you before your alarm, feeling like a dark omen for the day ahead, owes its vividness and length to the simple fact that dawn is when dreaming runs longest. The hour shaped the dream, not a message about what the day would bring. Here is something that reveals just how porous the dreaming mind really is. In sleep laboratories, researchers have gently introduced sensations to people while they dream, then woken them to ask what they experienced. A fine mist of water sprayed onto the skin would reappear moments later inside the dream. The sleeper might find themselves caught in sudden rain, or standing under a leaking roof, or walking by the sea. The outside sensation had been absorbed and woven into the unfolding story within seconds. The same happens with sounds and smells. A ringing nearby becomes a telephone in the dream, an alarm, a distant bell. The dreaming brain, far from sealed off, stays quietly tuned to the world around the bed and pulls what it senses into the narrative. This is one of the most telling things we know about dreams. They are not closed broadcasts running independent of reality. They are responsive, improvising in real time around whatever drifts in from outside. Think back to a dream that ended with a ringing phone, only to wake and find your alarm sounding. The dream had reached out, caught the noise, and built a story to hold it. That is not foresight. That is a mind listening even in sleep and folding the present moment into the dream as it goes. Think of the last unfamiliar face you saw in a dream, a stranger so vivid you could almost describe them. Here is the unsettling part. Your mind did not invent that face. The brain appears unable to create a truly new human face from nothing. Every stranger who has ever appeared in your dreams, every passerby, every unknown figure, is assembled from faces you have actually seen, whether you consciously remember them or not. The cashier you barely noticed years ago, a face in a crowd, someone glimpsed once on a screen. These stored impressions are recombined into people who feel new, but are stitched together from the real. The dreaming mind is an extraordinary editor, but not, it seems, an inventor of faces. It works only with what it has already gathered. Let that settle for a moment. The crowd of strangers populating your dreams is in truth a gathering of everyone you have ever looked at and forgotten. And this points back to the heart of our subject. A dream cannot conjure what the dreamer has never encountered. It is bound always to the material of a life already lived, even down to the faces of people you never knew you saw. Some dreams return to us again and again, the same scene replaying across months or even years. The unprepared exam, the house with a room you never knew was there, the endless search for something you cannot find. These recurring dreams are not random visitations. Researchers who track them find a clear pattern. They tend to surface during periods of unresolved stress and to fade once the underlying difficulty is faced or passes. The recurring dream of failing a test often appears in people who feel tested in waking life, judged uncertain, afraid of falling short. When the worry eases, the dream tends to loosen its grip. So the same dream coming back is less a message about the future and more a mirror of a present that has not yet settled. It is the mind, circling an unfinished feeling, returning to it the way a tongue returns to a sore tooth. Consider what your own recurring dreams might be tracking. Not what is coming, but what remains, unresolved, the worry that has not found its ending. There is something almost tender in that. The dream keeps returning not to warn you of tomorrow, but to mark a place in you that is still waiting to be eased, and it quietly lets go once that place finally heals. Among the dreams that frighten people most are those that seem to foretell a death. Someone wakes from a vivid dream of losing a loved one, and not long after that person dies. It feels like the darkest kind of prophecy. But look closely at when these dreams most often occur. In the great majority of cases, the dream concerns someone who is already seriously ill, already frail, already at the edge of life. The dreamer's mind is not reaching into the future. It is sitting with a loss the waking self has been quietly bracing for, perhaps for weeks. When you love someone who is gravely sick, your mind turns toward the possibility of their death constantly, by day in suppressed worry, by night in dreams that say plainly what the daylight hours hold at bay. The dream of the death that follows is most often the surfacing of an expectation already present. This does not make the grief less real or the dream less haunting, but it places the source where it belongs, in the dreamer's own knowledge, and fear not in any glimpse beyond the veil. The mind was preparing for what it already understood was near, the way a heart braces before it breaks. Imagine being inside a dream and suddenly knowing it is a dream while it continues all around you. This is lucid dreaming, and it is not a myth. Some people can become consciously aware within a dream, and a trained few can even shape what happens next. For decades, this was hard to study, because a dreamer cannot speak or move to report what they are experiencing. The body, after all, is paralyzed in REM. Then, researchers found an ingenious solution. The eyes are not paralyzed, so they arranged a code in advance. Once a lucid dreamer realized they were dreaming, they would move their eyes in a specific agreed pattern, left, right, and it worked. Sleepers deep in REM sent those deliberate eye movements out to the watching scientists. A signal flashed from inside the dream to the waking world. It was the first real conversation across that border. Sit with how strange and beautiful that is. A person fast asleep, lost in a dream, reaching out through the one channel left open to say, in effect, "I am here, I know I am dreaming." The dreaming mind, it turns out, is not always a passive passenger. Sometimes it wakes within its own story and finds a way to knock on the wall between worlds. Picture a laboratory at night. A volunteer sleeps wired to instruments, while researchers sit quietly watching the pens trace their breathing and their eyes. The sleeper is deep in a dream, and yet something deliberate is about to cross from that hidden interior into the room. Building on the discovery that lucid dreamers can move their eyes on purpose, scientists pushed further. They taught dreamers to answer questions while asleep using eye movements as a kind of code, almost like Morse signals flicked across the dark. In some experiments, a sleeper was even asked a simple math problem and signaled the correct answer through the agreed pattern of eye motions, all without waking. The reply came from someone genuinely asleep and dreaming. This stands among the most remarkable things ever demonstrated about the sleeping mind. A dream is not always a sealed chamber. Under the right conditions, a thread of communication runs both ways, and a dreaming person can reach back through it. Consider what this overturns. We tend to imagine dreams as utterly private, unreachable, locked away until morning. Yet here were people answering questions from inside their dreams, proving that the border between the sleeping and waking mind is far more open than anyone once believed. There is a common belief that dreams happen in an instant, that an entire dream unfolds in the final second before waking, compressed into a flash. It seems plausible. It isn't. When researchers used the lucid dreaming signal method to test this directly, they found something different. They asked dreamers to estimate stretches of time inside their dreams and to mark the start and end with eye movements. The intervals the sleepers signaled matched real clock time closely. A stretch that felt like 10 seconds in the dream took about 10 seconds in the room. Time inside a dream, it turns out, runs at roughly the same pace as time outside it. A dream that feels like an hour likely occupied, something close to an hour of sleep. This quietly corrects one of our oldest assumptions about dreaming. The dream is not a trick of compression squeezed into a final waking moment. It is an experience that genuinely unfolds minute by minute through the long REM stretches of the night. Think of how that reframes your nights. Those dreams you barely remember were not instantaneous flickers. They were lived experiences playing out in real time while you lay there for what was by the dream's own clock, exactly as long as it felt. Here is one of the most famous dreams in the history of science, and it is more instructive than the legend suggests. In the 1860s, the chemist Auguste Kekulé was struggling to work out the structure of benzene, a molecule whose arrangement had defied explanation. By his own later account, the answer came to him in a half-dream by the fire. He described seeing chains of atoms moving like snakes until one seized its own tail and spun in a ring. He woke with the insight that benzene's atoms form a closed loop, a ring which proved to be correct and reshaped chemistry. It is often told as proof that dreams deliver knowledge from beyond. But notice what the story actually contains. Kekulé had spent years immersed in this exact problem, turning it over endlessly while awake. The dream did not hand him a fact he had never sought. It reorganized material he had already gathered, offering a fresh arrangement of what his waking mind had long been wrestling with. This is how creative dreams seem to work. They do not bring in the unknown. They recombine the deeply known, sometimes freeing a solution the conscious mind was too rigid to see. The breakthrough was real. Its raw material was years of waking labor. There is a second famous dream in the story of invention, and it carries the same quiet lesson as the first. In the 1840s, an American inventor named Elias Howe was trying to build a working sewing machine. He had a stubborn problem he could not solve. In a hand needle, the hole sits at the blunt end, far from the point. and Howe kept assuming a machine needle must follow the same design. The arrangement would not work, and he was stuck for months. As the story is told, he dreamed of being seized by warriors who menaced him with spears, and in the dream he noticed that each spearhead carried a small hole near its tip. He woke with the answer plain before him: move the eye of the needle down to the pointed end. That single change made the machine work. Once more the tale is repeated as a gift from nowhere, yet Howe had been wrestling with this exact puzzle relentlessly, his mind steeped in it day and night. The dream did not deliver knowledge from outside him. It rearranged what he already carried, letting a fixed assumption finally bend. The pattern holds across these famous cases. The dream rewards the prepared mind, never the empty one, offering its gift only to someone who has already done the long work awake. Return for a moment to that ancient idea of Aristotle's, because modern medicine has given it a careful second look. There are documented cases in which people dreamed of illness in a specific part of the body, then later discovered they were indeed becoming sick there. It sounds like prophecy. The likely explanation is quieter, and in its way more remarkable. Your body sends a constant stream of internal signals, faint sensations from organs and tissues that rarely reach conscious awareness. During the day, this quiet inner chatter is drowned out by noise and activity. But in sleep, with the outer world muted, some of those subtle signals may rise into the dream. A growing inflammation, an early change in the heart's rhythm, a tension somewhere deep, sensed by the nervous system before the waking mind has noticed anything wrong. The dream then dramatizes that whisper into a story of sickness. This is not the future being revealed. It is the present being overheard, the body's own early warning surfacing, where the daytime din cannot bury it. Pay attention the next time a dream leaves you with a strange certainty about your own body. It may be nothing, but it may also be the dreaming mind doing something genuinely useful, giving voice to a message the rest of you had been too busy to hear. Step back from any single story and look at the whole sweep of human history. Something striking emerges. There is no known culture in any age or any corner of the world that has not described dreams believed to foretell what was coming. The belief appears among ancient Egyptians and Babylonians, among indigenous peoples of every continent, in classical Greece and Rome, in medieval Europe, in dynastic China, in oral traditions passed down for countless generations. Wherever humans have dreamed, they have wondered whether those dreams could see ahead. This universality is itself a profound fact. It tells us that the experience of the seemingly prophetic dream is not the invention of one people or one era. It arises wherever the human mind sleeps and dreams, which means it springs from something shared in how we are built, not from any single belief system. Consider what binds you to a Babylonian scribe 4,000 years gone, or to an elder telling dreams by a fire long before writing existed. You share the same nightly experience and very likely the same quiet astonishment when a dream seems to touch the days ahead. That common thread, running through every culture that ever was, points not to a power we all possess, but to a mind we all share. Imagine traveling sick and desperate to a place built entirely around the power of dreams. In ancient Greece, this was real. Across the Greek world stood temples dedicated to Asclepius, the god of healing, and people journeyed to them not to pray and leave, but to sleep. The practice was called incubation. The ill would purify themselves, then lie down to sleep within the sacred precinct, hoping to receive a dream in which the god appeared and offered healing or guidance toward a cure. Priests would help interpret whatever dreams arrived. These were not obscure shrines. They were major centers, drawing the suffering from far and wide for centuries, woven into the medical practice of the age. Whole institutions, in other words. were organized around the belief that the dreaming mind could deliver what waking life could not. Pause on what that reveals about us. Long before anyone could measure a brainwave, humans had already placed dreams at the very center of healing and hope, building temples to honor what happens behind closed eyes. The science is young, as we have seen, but the human conviction that dreams carry meaning is ancient, monumental, and built in stone across the hills of a world now vanished. How old is the human urge to read meaning into dreams? Older than almost anything else we have written down. Among the earliest surviving texts of civilization pressed into clay tablets in ancient Mesopotamia are records of dreams and their interpretations reaching back roughly 4,000 years. Scribes catalogued what particular dreams were thought to signify, building manuals for understanding the messages of sleep. These tablets sit among the oldest written documents humanity possesses, near the very dawn of writing itself. Think about what that ordering reveals. Almost as soon as people could record their thoughts in lasting form, one of the things they chose to preserve was the meaning of dreams. The interpretation of sleep's images was important enough to carve into clay and keep for the ages. The practice is very nearly as old as written language. So when you wake from a vivid dream and find yourself wondering what it meant, you are joining a line of human beings that stretches back to the first cities ever built, to scribes bent over wet clay beneath a Mesopotamian sky. The questions you ask of your dreams are among the oldest questions our species has ever bothered to write down, and we are still 4,000 years on asking them. Here is a quiet test of whether dreams carry fixed messages. If a particular dream image truly held a built-in meaning, that meaning ought to be the same everywhere. It is not. The same dream symbol can mean entirely opposite things from one culture to the next. In some traditions, a dream of death is read as a sign of long life and renewal, an ending that promises a beginning. In others, the very same dream is a dark omen of loss. A snake may signify danger and betrayal in one culture, and wisdom, healing, or fertility in another. A dream of falling teeth is interpreted as approaching death in some places, and as coming wealth or a birth in others. If these images carried fixed messages from beyond the readings, would agree. Instead, they contradict each other, shaped entirely by the beliefs of the people doing the interpreting. This reveals something essential. The meaning of a dream is not embedded in the dream itself. It is assigned by the dreamer and the culture after the fact. The image is raw and open, and we are the ones who decide what it says. The dream does not arrive carrying a message. We are the ones always who write the meaning onto it. Why does some mornings arrive with a vivid dream still glowing, while others leave nothing at all? A great deal depends on the precise moment you wake. Researchers discovered this early in the study of sleep. When people are woken directly out of REM, the dreaming stage, they report a vivid dream the great majority of the time. Wake the same person during the deep, dreamless stages instead, and they usually recall nothing or only a vague fragment. The difference is dramatic. The dream was likely happening either way, but whether you remember it depends almost entirely on how close you were to a REM period when consciousness returned. This is why waking naturally at the end of a sleep cycle, fresh from a long morning REM stretch, so often delivers a dream intact, while a jarring alarm in the middle of deep sleep leaves you blank. The dream did not fail to occur. You simply surfaced too far from it to carry it back. Consider what this means for the dreams you believe you do not have. You almost certainly dream every night several times. The ones you remember are not the only ones you had. They are merely the ones you happen to wake beside, close enough to the dreaming shore to bring something back with you. Most people are convinced they rarely dream. The truth is they rarely remember, and that turns out to be something you can change. Studies show that the simple act of keeping a dream journal, writing down whatever you recall the moment you wake, measurably increases how many dreams you remember over time. People who insisted they never dreamed begin within days of keeping a journal to recover dream after dream. Nothing about their sleep changed. What changed was the catching. Dreams are extraordinarily fragile, in memory slipping away within moments of waking, and the habit of immediately reaching for them before they dissolve trains the mind to hold on. Picture a dream as something written on mist. Turn toward it at once, and you can read it. Hesitate, rise. Glance at your phone, and it is gone. The journal is simply a way of turning toward it in time. This carries a small invitation if you are curious about your own nights. Should you want to meet the dreams you have been having all along, unremembered, the path is plain. Keep paper by the bed and write the instant you wake. Within a week, you may discover an entire hidden life of dreaming that was always there, lost each morning only because no one reached for it in time. There is a narrow window each morning, lasting barely longer than a minute, in which a dream lives or dies. When you wake from a dream, it is held only in the most fragile, temporary form of memory. Researchers have found that in roughly the first 90 seconds after waking, a dream that is not actively recalled or rehearsed begins to vanish, and within a few minutes most of it is gone beyond recovery. The dreaming brain, with its quieted memory systems, never properly filed the dream into lasting storage. So unless you catch it in those first moments, it slips away like a word on the tip of the tongue that you will never retrieve. This is why a dream can feel utterly clear as you wake, every detail sharp, and then dissolve into nothing before you have finished your first thought of the day. You were not careless. You were simply outside that 90-second window. Think back to a dream you felt certain you would never forget, gone by the time you reached the kitchen. It was not weakness of memory. It was the nature of dreams, written in a disappearing ink that fades almost the instant the eyes open, leaving only the faint impression that something vivid was there. Let us return to that Edinburgh research, because the design of it reveals so cleanly how the illusion of prophecy is built. The psychologist Caroline Watt and her colleagues wanted to test whether selective memory could explain precognitive dreams. They gave participants 2 diaries to read, one of dreams, one of daily events. Crucially, the researchers controlled which events matched which dreams. Some dreams were followed by a confirming event. Most were not. Then they simply asked people what they remembered. The finding was striking in its tidiness. Participants recalled the dream and event pairs that matched far more readily than the pairs that did not. The hits were remembered, the misses were forgotten. And this happened with invented diaries where no real prophecy was possible at all, which means the effect came purely from how memory works, not from anything mysterious in the dreams. Here is why this matters so much. It demonstrates, under controlled conditions, the exact mechanism that would make anyone feel their dreams predict the future, even when they plainly do not. The mind keeps the matches and quietly drops the rest. That is not a flaw to be ashamed of. It is simply how human memory is built, and it is enough all on its own to create a lifelong sense of foresight. We noticed earlier that nightmares tend to gather near morning. Part of the reason lies not only in sleep structure, but in the body's chemistry as dawn approaches. In the hours before waking, levels of cortisol, the body's main stress hormone, rise naturally as part of the daily rhythm that prepares you to wake and face the day. This climb begins while you are still asleep, still dreaming through the long REM stretches of early morning. Higher cortisol is associated with heightened emotional arousal, and some researchers think this rising tide contributes to the more intense, anxious, and threatening tone of dreams just before waking. The dream draws its dark mood, in part from a body already chemically tilting toward alertness and stress. So the ominous dream that wakes you near dawn, heavy with dread, is shaped not only by where it falls in the sleep cycle, but by the hormonal weather inside you at that hour. The feeling of foreboding has a measurable source in your bloodstream. It helps to know this when a morning dream leaves you shaken and certain that something bad is coming. The dread may be real as a sensation, while its cause is simply the body on schedule beginning to wake. Have you ever spent a day learning something new, then found yourself doing it again all night in your dreams? There is real machinery behind that. When you learn a new physical skill, the brain encodes the patterns of movement involved. During sleep, particularly in certain stages, it replays those very patterns, running through the sequences again, as part of consolidating them into lasting memory. Researchers have watched this replay directly in the brain, and sometimes it rises into awareness as a dream of the task itself. People who spend hours skiing dream of slopes. Those learning an instrument hear it in their sleep. After long days of a repetitive video game, players report dreaming the game's movements. The dream is a glimpse of the brain, rehearsing what you taught it, strengthening the skill while you rest. This is one of the clearest demonstrations that dreams are woven from the brain's own ongoing work. Far from random, far from prophetic, such a dream is the visible edge of learning being made permanent overnight. So the next time a new skill follows you into sleep, take it as a quiet sign of something useful happening. Your mind is not idling. It is practicing in the dark, laying down what your waking hours began. Here is a finding that sounds like prophecy, but is something far more useful. Researchers studying learning made a curious observation. People who dreamed about a task they had recently practiced tended to perform that task better afterward than those who did not dream of it. In one well-known study, participants learned to navigate a complex virtual maze. Those who then dreamed about the maze during a nap improved dramatically more on their next attempt than those who napped without such dreams. At a glance, this looks like the dream foresaw their success. It did nothing of the kind. The dream was a sign that the brain was actively consolidating the new skill, replaying and strengthening it during sleep. The dreaming was a marker of that deep processing, and the deep processing was what produced the improvement. The better performance did not come from the future leaking backward. It came from the brain quietly rehearsing in the dark. This is a beautiful inversion of the prophecy idea. The dream did not predict tomorrow's success. The dream helped create it, by being the visible trace of the mind doing its overnight work. What looks like foresight is in truth the dreaming brain, in the act of making you better at something you struggled with the day before. There is a gap, often a wide one, between how certain we feel about a memory and how accurate it actually is. Dreams sit squarely in that gap. When people recount a dream that seemed to come true, they typically describe it with great confidence, certain it matched the later event in vivid detail. But when researchers can compare what was actually recorded at the time against what people later claim, the match is usually far looser than the confidence suggests. The dream is remembered as more specific, more precise, more uncannily exact than it really was. Confidence and accuracy, it turns out, are not the same thing, and in memory they often drift far apart. This matters enormously for the sense of prophecy. A dream that was vague and general at the time can be remembered after a matching event as having been startlingly precise. The certainty is genuine. The precision is largely manufactured by memory after the fact. So when someone insists their dream foretold an event in exact detail, they are not lying. They are simply trusting a confidence that the mind generates all on its own, a confidence that, as the research shows, tells us very little about what the dream actually contained. We tend to imagine memory as a recording played back unchanged, each time we revisit it. It isn't. Every time you recall something, the brain reconstructs the memory rather than replaying it, and in doing so, it can quietly alter it. The memory is then stored again in its revised form. This is true of dreams as much as anything, and it has a particular consequence for the feeling of prophecy. Suppose you have a hazy dream, then days later something happens that resembles it. When you now recall the dream, you recall it in the light of what happened, and the memory subtly bends toward that outcome. Each retelling pulls it a little closer to the event, sharpening the match that was never really there. Over time, the dream you remember is no longer the dream you had. It has been reshaped, retold, edited toward the very thing it seemed to predict. Sit with how quietly this happens entirely outside your awareness. You are not inventing the match on purpose. Your memory is doing it for you, smoothing the dream into alignment with reality each time you bring it to mind, until a loose resemblance becomes in memory an unmistakable prophecy that the original dream never actually held. Listen closely to how prophetic dreams are usually described, and a pattern emerges. A dream of water later linked to a flood, or to tears, or to a journey by sea. A dream of darkness matched afterward to almost any misfortune. A dream of a falling building, later tied to any kind of collapse or loss. The dreams held up as predictions are very often broad, symbolic, and open-ended. The kind of imagery that could fit a great many possible futures. This is what makes the matching so easy. When a dream is vague enough, the world will eventually supply some event that seems to confirm it, simply because the dream was loose enough to be confirmed by countless things. The wider the net, the surer the catch. A specific, detailed prediction would be far harder to fulfill, and far more impressive if it were. But those are vanishingly rare. The dreams that feel prophetic are almost always the ones flexible enough to be read into nearly anything that follows. Notice this the next time a dream seems to have foretold an event. Ask how many other outcomes that same dream could have been said to predict. Most often, the answer is a great many, which is precisely why one of them was bound to arrive and seem to fit. Not everyone dreams of danger equally, and who dreams of it most tells us something important. Research consistently finds that people higher in anxiety report more dreams centered on threat, fear, and things going wrong. The worried mind, it seems, carries its worry into sleep, populating the night with the very dangers it rehearses by day. This makes sense, given what we know. Dreams draw on our emotional preoccupations, and for an anxious person, those preoccupations are heavily weighted toward what might go wrong. Their dreams become a theater of warning and catastrophe, not because the future holds more danger for them, but because their attention, awake and asleep, is tuned to threat. And here lies a quiet insight about prophetic dreams. The person who most often feels their dreams foretell disaster may simply be the person whose dreams are most saturated with disaster to begin with. More warning dreams means more chances for one of them to seem to come true. The sense of dark foresight may track not the future, but the dreamer's own anxiety. If your nights are heavy with dread and forewarning, it may be worth a gentle question. Is the dream reaching toward what is coming, or reflecting the weight you are already carrying through your waking days? Few dreams are as oddly common or as unsettling as the dream of teeth crumbling or falling from the mouth. Run your tongue along your teeth for a moment, and the image alone may make you wince. What is remarkable is how widely this exact dream appears. People report it across cultures that share no history, no language, no common tradition of dream interpretation. From one side of the world to the other, the same strange experience surfaces in sleep, the teeth loosening, breaking, spilling out. There is no external event that triggers it, no shared circumstance linking all these dreamers. The fact that such a specific image arises independently, again and again among peoples with nothing in common, points firmly toward a shared internal source. It suggests the dream springs from something built into the human mind and body itself, perhaps tied to anxiety, to a sensed loss of control, or to the physical sensations of the jaw during sleep, rather than from any outside meaning. This is a small but telling clue about the nature of dreams. When the same image appears everywhere with no common cause in the world, the cause must lie within us. The universal teeth dream is not a message from outside. It is the signature of a mind we all everywhere happen to share. If you gathered dreamers from every country on earth and asked what they dream about, a handful of scenes would rise to the top, the same ones nearly everywhere. The sensation of falling sudden and stomach lurching, the dream of being chased by something you cannot escape, the dream of facing an exam, a performance, a crucial moment utterly unprepared. These rank among the most commonly reported dreams across the entire world, cutting across language, culture, and circumstance. Surveys of dream content gathered from many nations keep returning the same short list. People who could never understand one another's words dream, it turns out, in the same handful of themes. Consider what that shared catalogue reveals. These are not learned dreams, passed from culture to culture. They surface independently everywhere, which means they arise from something common to the human condition itself: the fear of losing control, the fear of pursuit, the fear of being exposed and found wanting. Think of your own most recurring dream, the one that visits you again and again. There is a strong chance it sits somewhere on this universal list, which means you are dreaming right now the same dreams as strangers on the far side of the planet. The night unites us in fears we did not choose and did not teach one another. So what do we make of the fact that humans everywhere dream the same handful of dreams? It is tempting to imagine some shared cosmic source, a common channel all dreamers tune into. The simpler and better supported answer points inward to the brain itself. Every human brain is built on the same fundamental plan, shaped by the same long evolution, wired with the same emotional centers and the same ancient fears. When billions of nearly identical brains enter the dreaming state, with logic dimmed and emotion heightened, it is little wonder they produce similar dreams. The universality of falling, of being chased, of standing exposed, reflects a shared architecture, not a shared prophecy. We dream alike because we are built alike. This is, in its own way, more profound than the mystical explanation. It means the common ground of human dreaming lies not in some message broadcast to us all, but in the deep sameness of how we are made. The dreams that recur across every culture are a kind of fingerprint of the species, a record of what it is to have a human brain. They tell us less about any future being revealed and far more about the ancient shared inheritance every dreamer carries quietly into the dark. Who appears in your dreams and why those particular people? The pattern is clearer than you might expect. Research into dream content finds that the people who populate our dreams tend to be those who occupy our emotional lives most strongly. Not necessarily those we see most often, but those who matter most, who weigh on us, who fill our thoughts and feelings. A loved one, a person we are worried about, someone we miss, someone we are in conflict with. The dream casts its characters in proportion to their emotional presence in our waking world. This is why a person can vanish from your daily life, yet keep appearing in your dreams if they still hold weight in your heart, and why someone you see constantly but feel little about may rarely appear at all. The dream is drawn not toward the familiar, but toward the emotionally charged. Hold this: beside the dreams that seem to predict something about the people we love, of course, we dream of them. They live at the center of our emotional world, and so they live at the center of our dreams. When a dream about such a person seems to foretell news of them, remember, they were always among the most likely figures to appear, simply because of how much they mean to us. Here is one of the most quietly convincing illusions in all of dreaming. You dream of an old friend you have not thought of in years. The next day they call. It feels unmistakable, as though the dream reached forward and announced what was coming. But look more carefully at the order of things. Very often something had already brought that person quietly to mind before the dream. A half-noticed reminder, a passing association, a date on the calendar, a face in a crowd that resembled them. That subtle cue stirred them up from memory, surfaced them in the dream, and may well have prompted them to reach out too if you both shared some forgotten trigger. The dream did not come before the connection. It came after a connection your waking mind barely registered. We feel as though the dream led, when in truth it followed. This reversal is at the heart of so many prophetic feelings about dreams. The dream seems to be the cause, the herald of what follows, when it is more often an effect, a downstream ripple of something already set in motion. The mind, loving a good story, remembers the dream as the beginning, but the true beginning usually lies earlier, in a daytime moment too small to recall. Let us sit a little longer with that uncanny experience, because it is so common and so persuasive. You dream of someone and they make contact soon after. It is among the most frequently reported of all seemingly psychic dreams. What makes it so convincing is that the daytime cue which planted the seed is almost always forgotten. You do not remember the song on the radio that was theirs, the street you passed, where you once knew them, the anniversary your mind tracked beneath awareness. All you remember is the dream, vivid and clear, followed by the call. With the cause invisible, and only the dream and the outcome remaining, the mind draws the obvious line between them, and prophecy seems the only explanation. But the missing piece is the forgotten cue, the small waking moment that quietly summoned the person into your thoughts and your dream alike. Recall how much of each day slips past unremembered, the countless minor impressions that never reach lasting memory. Somewhere in that lost material often lies the true origin of the dream that felt prophetic. The connection between you and the person you dreamed of is real and meaningful. But the dream did not create it from nothing. It grew like everything in dreams, from seeds already planted in a day you cannot fully recall. Among all the dreams a human being will have across a lifetime, some of the most powerful come after a loss. Those who have lost someone they loved often dream of them with extraordinary vividness, dreams so clear and present that the person seems truly there again, their voice, their warmth, their way of being restored for the length of the dream. These grief dreams rank among the most intense and most lasting dreams people ever report, remembered in detail for years, sometimes for the rest of a life. Researchers who study bereavement find these dreams to be remarkably common and often deeply moving for the dreamer. There is a reason they carry such force. The person was at the very center of the dreamer's emotional world, and that center does not empty quickly when they are gone. The mind, still holding them so closely, brings them into the dream, with all the depth of feeling that loss has only sharpened. If you have had such a dream, you know it is unlike ordinary dreaming. It does not feel like imagination. It feels like a visit. And while the science would say the loved one was reassembled from memory and longing, that understanding need not diminish the gift of it, the chance to be near them once more, even briefly, in the country of sleep. Why does a dream feel so overwhelmingly real and meaningful in the moment, only to crumble into nonsense by morning? The answer lies in the precise chemistry of the dreaming brain. During REM sleep, the brain undergoes a striking shift in its chemical balance. Certain signaling molecules tied to focused, logical waking thought drop sharply. At the same time, the systems driving emotion and vivid internal imagery run at full strength. So the dreaming brain enters a state that is chemically tilted toward feeling and away from reason, flooded with emotional intensity, while the regulating fact-checking machinery falls quiet. This is not a malfunction. It is the normal chemistry of REM, and it explains the peculiar texture of dreams precisely. Inside the dream, emotion is everything, and logic is absent, so the most impossible events feel profoundly significant and entirely believable. Then you wake, the chemistry rebalances, reason returns to full power, and the same dream that gripped you so completely now seems strange and flimsy. Understand this shift, and the mystery of dreaming grows clearer without growing smaller. The sense that a dream carried deep meaning was real, generated by a brain awash in emotional chemistry. The meaning you felt was genuine as an experience. Its source was not a message from beyond, but the particular chemical state of a mind in the act of dreaming. Hold on to that chemical picture, because it resolves one of the most familiar puzzles of dreaming. Nearly everyone has woken convinced that a dream held some deep truth, some urgent meaning, only to find that conviction evaporate within minutes of getting up. The profundity that felt so certain in the dark simply will not survive the light. This is the direct result of the neurochemical shift between sleeping and waking. In the dream, with emotion heightened and critical reasoning chemically suppressed, the mind assigns enormous significance to whatever passes through it. Everything feels weighty, charged, important. Then as you wake, the brain's chemistry swings back toward its waking balance. Logic and judgment return to full strength, and they look upon the dream's contents and find them thin. The feeling of profundity was real while it lasted, but it was a product of brain state, not of any genuine revelation contained in the dream. This is worth remembering whenever a dream leaves you, certain it was trying to tell you something vital. That certainty is a known effect of the dreaming brain, generated in every person every night, regardless of what the dream contained. The sense of deep meaning is authentic as a feeling, and at the same time, it is exactly what a brain in REM is chemically built to produce. Here is a striking demonstration that dreams rise and fall with the body's inner chemistry. Women who are pregnant frequently report a pronounced change in their dreaming. The dreams become more vivid, more frequent, more emotionally intense, often charged with anxiety, anticipation, or strange and elaborate imagery. This shift is widely documented and widely experienced. The likely cause is twofold. Pregnancy brings dramatic hormonal changes that affect mood, brain activity, and sleep itself. And pregnancy also disrupts sleep, with more frequent waking, which means more opportunities to surface from REM and actually remember the dreams that were already occurring. Together, the changing chemistry and the broken sleep produce a season of unusually powerful dreaming. Consider what this tells us about dreams in general. They are not fixed or separate from the body. They respond directly to its hormonal state, intensifying when the body's chemistry intensifies. A profound life transition written into the blood as shifting hormones becomes visible at night in the texture of dreams. This is one more sign that dreaming is woven into our physical being, not floating above it. The vivid dreams of pregnancy are not omens about the child to come. They are the inner life of a body in profound transformation surfacing, where the dreaming mind makes such changes visible. Almost everyone has known a fever dream, and once known, it is never quite forgotten. When the body burns with fever, dreams can take on a strange and disturbing quality, disorienting, repetitive, sometimes filled with distorted scale or looping oppressive imagery. They feel different from ordinary dreams, heavier and more unsettling, and they often linger in memory long after the illness passes. There is a physical reason. Fever raises the temperature of the brain itself, and the brain is exquisitely sensitive to temperature. Its delicate electrical and chemical activity, the very processes that generate dreams, are altered when it runs hot. The result is dreaming pushed out of its usual channels into something more chaotic and intense. The fever dream is quite literally the experience of a brain dreaming at the wrong temperature. This is a small but vivid proof of where dreams come from. Change the physical state of the brain, even by a few degrees, and the character of dreams changes with it. The disturbing fever dream is not a message delivered by the illness. It is the direct physical signature of a brain working under heat, generating its imagery through machinery temporarily knocked off its normal course. The dream follows the body faithfully, even into sickness. If you want clear evidence that dreams come from brain chemistry, look at what happens when that chemistry is deliberately changed. A wide range of medications are known to alter dreaming in noticeable ways. Some make dreams far more vivid and intense. Some increase nightmares. Some suppress dreaming, and others, when stopped, unleash a flood of it. Drugs that act on the brain's chemical messengers, whether prescribed for mood, for blood pressure, for sleep, or for other conditions, frequently list changed dreams among their effects. People starting or stopping such medications often notice their dream life transform almost overnight. This is quietly decisive. If dreams were messages arriving from outside the mind, why would a small chemical adjustment reshape them so reliably? The fact that altering brain chemistry alters dreams in predictable directions points firmly to the source of dreams being the chemistry itself. The dream is generated from within by a physical brain, running on chemical signals, and when those signals shift, the dreams shift with them. There is something grounding in this. Whatever vivid worlds the night brings, they are produced by an organ you can influence, even with a single pill. The dream is not visited upon you from beyond. It is made every night by the alterable chemistry of your own brain. Here is a phenomenon that catches many people by surprise. Some substances, including alcohol and certain medications, suppress REM sleep, the dreaming stage, while they are being used. The brain, deprived of its normal dreaming, quietly accumulates a kind of debt. Then, when the substance is stopped, the brain reclaims what it lost in a powerful surge, a phenomenon known as REM rebound. For a time, dreams come back more vivid, more frequent, and more intense than usual, sometimes startlingly so. People giving up alcohol, for instance, often report a sudden onset of wild, overwhelming dreams in the following nights. The brain is in effect catching up on dreaming it was prevented from doing. This reveals something important about how essential dreaming seems to be. The brain does not simply skip the REM it loses and move on. It tracks the deficit and insists on recovering it, as though dreaming were a need that must be met, not a luxury that can be foregone. Consider what that implies. Dreaming matters to the brain enough that it will reclaim missed dreams at the first opportunity, flooding the nights to make up the loss. Whatever dreams are for, and we are still uncovering that the brain treats them as something it cannot do without for long. There is a kind of pressure that builds inside the sleeping brain, and it tells us how deeply dreaming is needed. In experiments, researchers have woken people every time they entered REM sleep, cutting off the dreaming stage again and again through the night. What happens is revealing. The longer REM is withheld, the harder the brain tries to enter it. The sleeper begins slipping into REM faster and more often, and the researchers must wake them with rising frequency to keep blocking it. The drive to dream grows stronger the more it is denied. And when the person is finally allowed to sleep undisturbed, they plunge into far more REM than usual, reclaiming the lost dreaming in a powerful rebound. This mounting pressure shows that dreaming is not optional for the brain. It is something the brain demands, pushing back ever harder against anything that prevents it, the way the body pushes back against being held underwater. The need intensifies until it is met. Sit with what that suggests about your own nights. The dreaming you do, whether or not you remember it, is not idle entertainment the brain could easily skip. It is a process the brain protects fiercely, reaching for it harder the longer it is kept away, as though something essential to you depends on being allowed to dream. We touched earlier on water sprayed during sleep, but the dreaming mind's openness to the outside world runs wider than that. Sounds and smells present in the room around you can be drawn into a dream as it happens, folded seamlessly into the story. A car alarm outside becomes, in the dream, a ringing bell or a siren in some unfolding drama. The smell of breakfast cooking drifts into a dream of a kitchen or a feast. A voice in the next room becomes a character speaking. The dreaming brain, still quietly monitoring its surroundings, takes whatever sensation arrives and weaves it into the narrative, without breaking the spell. To the dreamer, it all feels like part of the dream's own invention. This responsiveness tells us the dream is not sealed away from reality. Even in sleep, the brain keeps one channel open to the world, listening, smelling, sensing, and improvising the dream around what it detects. Think of how often a dream has ended by incorporating your alarm, your phone, a noise from the street just before you woke. The dream reached out and caught the present moment, then built a story to contain it. The boundary between the dreaming mind and the waking world is not a wall. It is a membrane, thin and quietly permeable all night long. Try the next time you dream to read a page of writing or check the time on a clock. Most people find they cannot. This is one of the strangest and most consistent features of dreaming. Text in dreams tends to shift, blur, or change each time you look. Clocks refuse to hold a steady time. The written word, so stable in waking life, becomes slippery and unreliable in sleep. The reason lies in which parts of the brain are active during dreaming, and which are dimmed. The regions that handle reading, precise symbolic processing, and stable logical detail are among those that quiet down in REM, while the emotional and image-generating areas run hot. So the dreaming brain can build a vivid face, a sweeping landscape, a surge of feeling, but it struggles to render the fine, fixed detail of letters and numbers. Lucid dreamers, in fact, use exactly this as a test. To check whether they are dreaming, they try to read something twice, knowing the text will change if they are asleep. This small quirk is a quiet map of the dreaming mind, showing plainly which faculties stay online and which step back. The dream's inability to hold a clock steady is not random. It is a direct window into the architecture of a brain in the act of dreaming. Where do the strange plots of dreams actually come from? Part of the answer is a deep human tendency to make stories out of anything, even noise. During REM, the brainstem sends out bursts of more or less random signals, firing upward into the higher regions of the brain. The dreaming mind, faced with this internal static, does something remarkable. It weaves the random signals into a narrative, constructing a story to make sense of them. A process related to what scientists call confabulation. A jolt of fear chemistry becomes a dream of being chased. A random surge tied to movement becomes a dream of flying or falling. The brain refuses to leave the signals as meaningless, and instead spins them into events, characters, and plots. This reveals something fundamental about us. The human mind is a storytelling engine that cannot help itself, compelled to find meaning and narrative, even in raw, purposeless noise. The dream is in part that engine at work on the brain's own internal static building, a coherent tale from chaos. And here is the deeper resonance. The same drive that turns random nighttime signals into a dream story is the drive that, on waking, turns a coincidence into a prophecy. We are pattern makers and storytellers to the core, awake and asleep alike, forever spinning meaning out of the raw material at hand. You are drifting off, almost gone, when suddenly you feel yourself falling, and your whole body jerks awake with a gasp. Nearly everyone knows this sensation. It can feel alarming, even ominous, as though something startled you back from an edge. But it is not a warning or a premonition of any kind. It is a well-understood physical event called a hypnic jerk or a sleep start. As you transition from wakefulness into sleep, your muscles begin to relax and your bodily systems start to power down. Occasionally, this descent triggers a sudden involuntary muscle contraction, a brief electrical misfire as the body crosses the threshold into sleep. The falling sensation is the brain's attempt to interpret that sudden jolt, often building a fleeting image of a misstep or a fall to explain it. These jerks are completely common and harmless, experienced by the great majority of people at one time or another. There is something reassuring in knowing the plain mechanics of it. That lurch of falling, which can feel so strange and even meaningful in the moment, is simply the body fumbling slightly as it hands you over from waking to sleep. No omen, no message, just the ordinary clumsy machinery of crossing the border into the night. Imagine waking in the night, fully conscious, aware of your room, yet unable to move a muscle, and sensing that someone or something is in the room with you. This is sleep paralysis, and for those who experience it, it can be among the most terrifying things the mind produces. Here is what is actually happening. During REM sleep, the body is paralyzed to keep you from acting out your dreams. Normally, this paralysis ends before you wake, but sometimes the timing slips and you become conscious while your body is still locked in REM paralysis and while dreamlike imagery is still active. The result is a waking mind in a paralyzed body, with the dreaming machinery still running, projecting vivid figures and presences into the real room. People report shadowy intruders, a weight on the chest, a sense of menace, all feeling utterly real. Cultures across history have explained these episodes through demons, spirits, and night visitors because the experience is so convincing. But its source is now well understood: a simple overlap between the dreaming state and waking consciousness. Knowing this can rob the experience of some of its terror. The figure at the foot of the bed, so real and so frightening, is the dreaming brain caught briefly in the open, painting its imagery onto a room while you lie awake to see it. Anyone who has comforted a small child in the dark knows how real their nightmares are to them. There is a reason this age is so haunted. Nightmares are especially common in young children, peaking roughly between the ages of 3 and 6. In these years, a child's imagination has grown rich and powerful, capable of conjuring monsters, shadows, and vivid fears. But the part of the mind that firmly separates the imagined from the real is still developing, still unsteady. So the frightening images the young mind can now create are not yet held in check by a settled understanding that they are only imagined. The monster in the dream and the monster feared in the dark bedroom afterward carry a weight that an adult mind would dismiss. The child cannot yet fully dismiss it. As children grow and the grasp of reality strengthens, these nightmares typically ease. This explains so much about early childhood fears: the dread of the closet, the certainty that something lives under the bed. It is not foolishness. It is a mind whose power to imagine has temporarily outrun its power to reassure itself. If you remember your own childhood nightmares, or soothe a child through theirs, now this is the tender truth beneath them. A young imagination, vivid and unguarded, meeting a world it cannot yet be sure is safe. There is a feeling almost everyone has had, the sudden eerie sense that a present moment has happened before, that you have stood in exactly this place, hearing exactly these words. It is called déjà vu, and it may be a cousin to the feeling of a prophetic dream. Some researchers think both arise from small glitches in how the brain handles the timing of memory. In déjà vu, the theory goes, a present experience is mistakenly tagged as a memory, so the new moment feels uncannily familiar, as though foreseen or relived. A similar timing error may underlie the sense that a dream predicted an event. The brain, encountering something, may falsely flag it as matching an earlier dream, generating the powerful conviction that the dream foretold it, when the link is manufactured in the moment of recognition itself. In both cases, the feeling is intense and immediate, and in both cases, it may stem not from any real glimpse of the future, but from the brain briefly mishandling the order and labeling of its own memories. This is a humbling thought. Some of our most mysterious experiences, the moment that feels foreseen, the dream that feels fulfilled, may share a single quiet source, a mind whose remarkable memory systems occasionally slip a gear and leave us certain we have touched the future. It would be unfair to pretend science has never seriously tried to test prophetic dreaming. It has, and the most famous attempt deserves an honest hearing. In the 1960s, at the Maimonides Medical Center in New York, researchers ran a series of careful experiments on dream telepathy. A sleeping volunteer would dream while in another room. A sender concentrated on a randomly chosen image, trying to influence the dream. On waking, the dreamer described their dream, and judges assessed how well it matched the target picture. The researchers reported results that seemed to exceed chance, suggesting the dreams had somehow been shaped by the distant images. For a time, this drew real attention. But here is the crucial part, the part that honest inquiry requires. When other scientists attempted to repeat the experiments, the results did not reliably reappear. Replication, the bedrock of scientific evidence, proved elusive, and critics identified weaknesses in how the studies were judged and controlled. A finding that cannot be reliably reproduced, cannot be trusted as established. This is not a story of suppression or mystery. It is simply how science works at its best, holding even intriguing results to the hard standard of repeatability, and declining to accept what it cannot confirm again and again. The question was taken seriously. The evidence in the end did not hold. After more than a century of scientific interest in dreams, where do we actually stand on the central question? Here is the careful, honest answer. No controlled scientific study has ever convincingly demonstrated a dream conveying information that the dreamer could not have obtained through ordinary means, through memory, perception, knowledge, inference, or chance. Every well-documented case of a seemingly prophetic dream, when examined closely, can be accounted for by the mechanisms we have been exploring. Selective memory coincidence among countless dreams, vague imagery matched after the fact, body's own quiet signals, forgotten daytime cues. None has required or withstood scrutiny as evidence for a genuine glimpse of the future. This is not the same as proving such a thing is impossible, and a careful scientist would not claim it is. It is simply where the evidence stands today, which is to say that the extraordinary claim has not met the ordinary standard of proof. It would be easy to find this disappointing, but consider it instead with clear eyes. The absence of proven prophecy does not empty dreams of wonder. It points the wonder in a truer direction toward the astonishing real machinery of the dreaming mind, which needs no supernatural power to be one of the most remarkable things about being human. There is a subtle trap in how scientific evidence accumulates, and it bears directly on claims about prophetic dreams. It is called publication bias. Studies that find a striking positive result, an apparent effect, are far more likely to be published and discussed than studies that find nothing. A dramatic finding makes news. A careful experiment that detects no effect often goes unpublished. quietly filed away. Now imagine many researchers testing whether dreams can predict the future. By chance alone, a few will stumble on results that look positive, while many more find nothing at all. If only the positive few get published, the printed record will appear to show evidence for prophetic dreams, even though the larger body of null results hidden from view tells the opposite story. The visible evidence is skewed, inflated by what gets published and what does not. This is why scientists treat single striking studies with caution and place their trust in reliable replication instead. It is a quiet but powerful lesson in how to think clearly. The handful of studies that seem to support an extraordinary claim may be only the visible tip of a much larger iceberg of experiments that found nothing. The silent majority that never made it into print and never made it into the story we tell ourselves about dreams. Of all the mechanisms we have traced tonight, one stands at the very center, quietly powering the rest. It is confirmation bias, the deep human tendency to notice and remember what fits our expectations, while overlooking and forgetting what does not. Applied to dreams, its effect is profound. You dream a great many dreams, the vast majority leading nowhere. On the rare occasion, a dream seems to match a later event. That hit is vivid, striking, and unforgettable. The countless misses, the dreams that predicted nothing, leave no trace. So your memory fills over a lifetime with a small collection of remembered hits and almost none of the far more numerous misses. From that lopsided record, the sense of prophetic power is born. Not from any real foresight, but from the simple fact that the mind keeps the matches and discards the rest. This single bias, more than any other factor, explains why so many thoughtful, honest people are convinced their dreams can see ahead. They are not deceiving themselves through foolishness. They are experiencing a universal feature of human memory, one that operates in everyone, silently weighting the evidence toward belief. Once you see it clearly, the mystery does not vanish so much as relocate, from the dream itself to the remarkable selective mind that remembers it. Why do some people experience prophetic dreams constantly while others almost never do, even though everyone dreams? A clue comes from that same Edinburgh research, and it is a fascinating one. In one study, participants were given dreams and news events that had no real connection to each other, and asked to find correspondences between them. The people who already believed in the paranormal proved notably better at this task, more skilled at spotting links, matches, and resonances between things that were by design entirely unrelated. The dreams and events shared no true connection, yet these participants readily found them. This points to a real difference in how people process the world. Some minds are simply more inclined to perceive meaningful patterns, to draw connecting lines between separate things. That tendency applied to one's own dreams and one's own life would generate far more felt matches, far more apparent prophecies, than it would in a person less prone to pattern finding. The dreams need not differ at all. The difference lies in the interpreter. This reframes the whole experience gently. Whether your dreams seem to foretell the future may depend less on your dreams than on you, on how readily your particular mind reaches out to connect the scattered pieces of experience into a pattern that feels like meaning. Look up at a sky of drifting clouds and you will see faces, animals, shapes, figures forming and dissolving. No one put them there. Your mind made them out of a deep and constant hunger to find pattern and meaning in shapelessness. This tendency has a name, and it runs through everything about how we understand dreams. The brain is relentlessly driven to detect order, especially familiar and meaningful order, even in random or ambiguous material. It finds faces in clouds, shapes in shadows, voices in noise, and it finds prophecy in dreams. A dream is rich, ambiguous, open material, exactly the kind of thing this pattern hunger feasts upon. Presented with a vague dream and the events of a life, the mind eagerly draws connections, assembles meaning, and constructs a sense that the dream foretold something in the very same way it assembles a face from a few suggestive curves of cloud. The meaning feels discovered, but it is largely created by the looking. This is among the most important things to understand about ourselves. We are meaning-making creatures to our core, unable to look at ambiguity without shaping it into significance. The prophecy we feel in a dream is often this ancient gift turned inward, the same power that paints faces across an empty sky. Here is a quiet experiment you could run on your own life, and its result is deeply telling. When people begin keeping a careful dream diary, writing down their dreams in full each morning, something revealing happens to the sense of prophecy. It tends to fade. The reason is simple and powerful. Without a record, memory keeps only the hits, the few dreams that seem to come true, while silently discarding the thousands that led nowhere. But a diary records everything the misses, alongside the rare match. With all those unfulfilled dreams written down in black and white, the occasional coincidence no longer stands alone and astonishing. It sits in its true context, one small match among countless dreams that predicted nothing at all. The illusion of foresight depends on forgetting, and the diary refuses to forget. This is why researchers consider dream journals such useful tools, not only for remembering dreams, but for seeing them clearly. The written record dissolves the selective memory that manufactures prophecy. Should you ever wonder whether your own dreams truly see ahead, this is the honest test. Write them all down, every night for a long while, and then look back. The hits will still be there, but so will the vast sea of misses around them, and in that fuller picture, the sense of prophecy quietly loses its ground. Notice which of your dreams ever carry that charge of seeming prophecy. They are almost never the trivial ones. The dream of doing laundry of a forgettable errand. The dreams that feel predictive are the ones that touch what matters most to you, your deepest fears, your strongest hopes, the people and outcomes you care about beyond all others. A dream about a loved one's safety, a dream about a longed-for success or a dreaded loss. There is a clear reason these dreams above all come to feel prophetic. They are the ones charged with the most emotion, and emotion makes a dream unforgettable. It also makes you watch keenly for any real event that might match, because the stakes are so high. So these emotionally weighted dreams are both the most vividly remembered and the most eagerly matched against reality. Of course, they are the ones that seem to foretell. They are the dreams you could never forget and could never stop looking to confirm. This tells you something gentle about where the feeling of prophecy truly lives. It clusters not around random events, but around your heart, around what you love and fear most deeply. The prophetic dream is, in a sense, a map of your strongest attachments, lit up by the emotion that makes it both memorable and meaningful to you. Have you ever noticed that the dreams which feel like warnings are almost never about strangers? No one wakes shaken by a premonition concerning a person they have never met. The dreams that arrive with that weight of foreboding gather nearly always around the people we love most. A child, a parent, a partner, a dear friend. This is not coincidence, and it follows directly from everything we have seen. We dream most of those who fill our emotional lives. We watch most anxiously for anything happening to them, and we remember most powerfully the dreams that touch them. So the people at the center of our hearts become the natural subjects of our most haunting and seemingly prophetic dreams. The premonition clusters around love, because love is where our deepest fears and attachments live. There is something quietly moving in this beneath the unease. The dream that frightens you about someone you love is at its root a measure of how much they mean to you. It is your care for them surfacing in the dark, dramatized by a dreaming mind into a warning. The fear is real because the love is real. And while the dream cannot truly foresee harm coming to them, it can show you plainly just how central they are to the landscape of your inner life. When the same dream returns to you again and again, it is tempting to wonder what it is trying to foretell. But the evidence points somewhere else, somewhere closer to home. Recurring dreams studied carefully tend to reflect not a future event, but a present unresolved emotional situation, something in your current life that has not been faced, settled, or worked through. The dream of being unprepared returns during a season of feeling tested. The dream of searching for something lost recurs, while something in waking life feels missing or incomplete. The dream of an old conflict replays while that conflict or its echo still sits unresolved within you. The repetition is the mind circling a feeling it has not yet been able to put down. So the recurring dream is less a window onto what is coming and more a mirror of what is unfinished now. It marks a tender, unsettled place in your present life, returning to it faithfully until something there finally eases. This offers a more useful way to meet such a dream. Rather than asking what it predicts, you might gently ask what it reflects. What current worry or longing or unhealed thing it keeps circling back to. Understood this way, the recurring dream becomes not an omen to fear, but a quiet message from yourself, about yourself in the here and now. There is a practical use for dreams that has nothing to do with the future and a great deal to do with the present self. Many therapists work with their clients' dreams, not as predictions but as a way of reaching feelings and concerns the waking mind has not yet been able to express. A dream can give shape to an anxiety. A person cannot quite name a grief they have not let themselves feel, a conflict they have been avoiding. Because the dreaming mind speaks in image and emotion, rather than careful guarded words, it sometimes reveals what the daytime self keeps hidden even from itself. A therapist exploring a dream with someone is often helping them find language for something already present inside them but not yet spoken. The dream becomes a doorway inward, toward the real and current contents of a person's emotional life. This is a meaningful role for dreams grounded entirely in the here and now. They can illuminate the self-surfacing, what lies beneath awareness, helping a person understand what they truly feel. The value lies not in any glimpse of tomorrow, but in a clearer view of today, of the worries and longings already alive within. The dream in this light is less a prophet than an honest witness to who you are right now and what you are quietly carrying. Listen carefully to how prophetic dreams are actually described, and a revealing pattern emerges in the very texture of them. They almost always involve broad emotional themes rather than precise checkable facts. A dream conveys a feeling of impending loss, a sense that something is wrong, a mood of danger or change. What it rarely contains is the kind of specific, verifiable detail that would make a genuine prediction, an exact name, a precise date, an unmistakable particular that could only mean one thing. The dreams held up as foretelling the future trade in atmosphere and emotion, not in concrete specifics. This matters because vague emotional themes are easy to match to later events, while precise details are not. A dream that simply carries a sense of dread will eventually find some real misfortune to attach to, because life always supplies misfortunes. A dream that specified the exact event in exact detail before it happened would be genuinely hard to explain, and these are vanishingly rare to non-existent in careful records. Notice this the next time you hear of a prophetic dream, including your own. Ask what it actually contained. Almost always it was a feeling, an impression, a broad theme, precisely the kind of open material that the events of any life will sooner or later seem to fulfill. leaving the emotion to feel like foresight. Why do the most emotionally intense experiences of our lives so often return to us in dreams? The brain appears to treat them with special priority. Memories that carry strong emotion are tagged by the brain as important, marked for extra processing. And these emotionally charged memories are preferentially replayed during sleep. The dreaming mind returns again and again to what moved us most. The frightening event, the painful loss, the moment of intense joy or shame. This replay is thought to be part of how the brain processes and integrates difficult experiences, working through their emotional weight over many nights. So the events that shook you most deeply are exactly the ones most likely to reappear in your dreams, sometimes for a long while afterward. This is the machinery behind so much of our dreaming life, and behind many seemingly meaningful dreams. The dream that keeps returning to a hard event is the brain doing its slow work of integration, revisiting the emotion until it can be settled. There is something almost compassionate in this design. The mind does not simply file away our most painful and powerful moments and move on. It returns to them in the safety of sleep again and again, gradually weaving them into the larger fabric of who we are, helping us carry what we have lived. Return once more to Aristotle's ancient insight, because modern science has widened it beyond the body to the whole sensed world. Throughout your day you perceive far more than you consciously notice. Faint sounds, fleeting sights, subtle changes in the people and places around you, all registered by the brain but never reaching conscious awareness. This subliminal stream is vast, and some of it can resurface later in dreams. You might unconsciously register the early strain in a friend's voice, the first faint signs of trouble in a situation, a detail your conscious mind passed over. In sleep, freed from the noise of waking attention, such an impression can rise into a dream, which then seems to foretell the trouble that openly emerges days later. But the dream did not see the future. It gave voice to something you had already perceived without knowing it. This is one of the most elegant explanations for certain prophetic dreams. The information was real, but it came from your own unnoticed perception, not from beyond. Consider how much your mind takes in that you never consciously meet. Somewhere in that hidden intake may lie the source of a dream that felt like prophecy, but was in truth your own quiet perceptiveness surfacing at night to tell you what part of you had already silently understood. Let us look gently at one of the most common and most painful kinds of seemingly prophetic dream, the dream that something is wrong with an ailing relative, arriving before bad news comes. It feels like a warning sent from somewhere beyond. But consider what is usually already true when such a dream occurs. When someone we love is unwell or aging or fragile, we carry worry about them constantly, often more than we let ourselves consciously feel. That worry does not vanish at night. It surfaces in dreams, dramatizing the fear we hold by day into vivid nighttime scenes of decline or loss. If difficult news then arrives, as with a frail or ill person, it sadly often will, the earlier dream seems to have foreseen it. In truth, the dream reflected a worry already alive in us, about a danger that was already real and already feared. The dream did not bring knowledge from outside. It expressed knowledge and fear we already held within. This understanding does not lessen the love or the grief such dreams carry, but it places their source where it truly lies, in the depth of our care and concern for those who are vulnerable. The anticipatory dream is the heart's worry made visible in sleep, not a message from the future, but a measure of how closely we were already watching over someone we feared to lose. Here is a striking demonstration that dreams track the present rather than the future, drawn from an event the whole world lived through together. When the pandemic arrived in the early 2020s, researchers gathering dream reports from many countries noticed something remarkable. dream content changed measurably, and on a vast scale, almost in step with the unfolding crisis. People began reporting more dreams of illness, of suffocation, of invisible threats, of confinement and isolation, and fear. The collective anxiety of the moment wrote itself directly into the dreams of millions across borders and cultures in close to real time. As the world's waking life filled with a new dread, so did its dreaming life. This was prophecy in reverse, in a sense. The dreams did not foretell the pandemic. They reflected it, responding to a fear that was already present and shared, registering the emotional weather of the world as it happened. It stands as powerful evidence for how dreaming truly works. Dreams are shaped by what occupies us now, by the anxieties and experiences pressing on us in waking life. When a whole world grew frightened together, the world's dreams shifted together too, not looking ahead to the danger, but mirroring the danger already here. Faithfully, and on a scale never before documented, there is an assumption hidden inside the feeling of prophecy, and it is worth bringing into the light. When a dream feels intensely vivid, we tend to trust it more, to take its very vividness as a sign that it must mean something, must be true, must have foretold what followed. But vividness and accuracy have no reliable connection at all. A dream can be extraordinarily vivid and correspond to nothing whatsoever. Another can be faint and forgettable, yet happen by chance to match a later event. The intensity of a dream in memory tells you about the emotional and neural state that produced it, not about whether it touched reality. Vividness is generated by the dreaming brain's chemistry, by emotional charge, by how close you were to waking factors entirely separate from any link to actual events. Yet we instinctively treat a vivid dream as a credible one. This is a subtle but important error in how we weigh our own dreams. The dream that struck you most powerfully, that you remember in piercing detail, is not for that reason more likely to have been prophetic. Its power lies in how it was made, not in what it foretold. Strength of feeling is a poor guide to truth here, and the dreams that most insist on their own significance are not by that insistence any more connected to what actually comes to pass. Here is one of the most unsettling findings about memory, and it strikes at the very heart of prophetic dreams. People can come to genuinely remember having had a dream before an event, when in fact, the dream or the memory of it formed only afterward. This is sometimes called retrospective falsification. The mind encountering a significant event can construct or reshape a memory of a prior dream that seems to have predicted it, and that false memory feels every bit as real and certain as a true one. The person is not lying. They sincerely remember dreaming it beforehand, but the memory itself was built or altered after the fact, fitted to the event in hindsight. Because we have seen that dreams are barely encoded and easily reshaped, they are especially vulnerable to this. A vague impression, or even nothing at all, can become in memory a clear prophetic dream that preceded the event, assembled entirely in retrospect. This is humbling to sit with. It means that even the sincerest, most confident account of a dream that came true cannot be fully trusted, because the memory of the dream may have been shaped by the very event it seems to predict. The certainty is real. The sequence it claims that the dream came first may itself be a quiet invention of memory. Think about why certain dream coincidences feel so overwhelming, so impossible to dismiss as mere chance. It is rarely the trivial matches that grip us. It is the ones tied to something emotionally enormous, a death, a reunion, a disaster, a profound turn in life. When a dream seems to have foreshadowed an event of great emotional weight, the sheer significance of the event floods backward onto the dream, making the connection feel destined, inevitable, far beyond coincidence. The sense is overwhelming that something this meaningful could not possibly have been chance. But the emotional weight of the event does not actually change the odds of the coincidence. It only changes how the coincidence feels. A meaningless match and a devastating one are equally products of chance, yet the devastating one feels charged with fate simply because of what it touched. Our judgment of probability bends under emotional pressure. The heavier the event, the harder it becomes to accept that the matching dream was ordinary coincidence, even when statistically, that is exactly what it was. This is worth holding gently in mind. The dreams that feel most undeniably prophetic are often simply the ones attached to events too significant for us to bear calling them chance. The feeling of inevitability comes not from the dream but from the weight of what happened next. Step back and consider a quiet boundary that runs through every dream ever recorded. A dream can only ever be built from the material a dreamer already holds, their knowledge, their memories, their fears, their perceptions, conscious and unconscious. It cannot depict an event that has no link whatsoever to anything the dreamer knows, has sensed, or could imagine. The dreaming mind is a master at recombining what it has gathered, but it cannot conjure genuine information about a distant, unconnected event out of nothing. This is why the dreams that seem prophetic are always on inspection about things within the dreamer's emotional and experiential world. The people they love, the fears they carry, the situations they are already enmeshed in. They never deliver true specific knowledge of something entirely outside the dreamer's reach. The constraint is consistent and revealing. Whatever a dream shows, its raw material was already inside you. There is something clarifying in recognizing this limit. It explains why prophetic dreams cluster so tightly around our own lives and loves, and never stray into genuinely unknowable territory. The dream works only with what you bring to it. It can rearrange your inner world in startling ways, but it cannot reach beyond that world to retrieve what you never knew, never sensed, and never feared. The dream's reach ends always at the edges of the dreamer. We are not the only creatures who dream, and that fact reframes the whole question of what dreams are for. Many animals show REM sleep, the stage tied to dreaming in humans. You may have watched a dog twitch its paws and whimper softly in sleep, seemingly chasing something through a dream. Cats, rats, birds, and many other animals enter REM with the same rapid eye movements and brain activity that mark dreaming in us. This is profoundly telling. Dreaming, or at least the brain state that produces it, is not a uniquely human gift. It is a widespread feature of animal life, shaped by evolution across millions of years, long before humans existed to wonder about prophecy. Whatever dreaming does, it does something biologically useful enough to have evolved and persisted across many species. That function almost certainly involves memory learning and the processing of experience, not the foretelling of events. The dreaming dog is not glimpsing its future. It is in all likelihood replaying and consolidating its day just as we do. This places human dreaming in its true context. Our dreams, for all their richness and meaning to us, rest on an ancient biological foundation we share with the animals around us. Dreaming came long before any notion of prophecy, serving the deep practical needs of the living brain. Here is one of the most beautiful experiments in all of sleep science, and it shows the dreaming brain caught in the act of its real work. Researchers trained rats to run through a maze and recorded the specific patterns of brain cells firing as the rats learned the route, each part of the maze lighting up its own signature of neural activity. Then they watched those same rats while they slept. Remarkably, during sleep, the rats' brains replayed the very same patterns in the same order, as if the animals were running the maze again in their dreams. The neural footprints of the waking journey reappeared in sleep, retracing the path step by step. This gave scientists a direct window into memory consolidation, the brain rehearsing and strengthening what it had learned during sleep by replaying it. It is as close as we have come to reading the content of an animal's dream, and what it revealed was not prophecy, but practice the brain going back over the day to lock in what mattered. Let this settle as a kind of answer. When we ask what dreams are truly for, here is evidence written in the firing of neurons. The dreaming brain returns to where it has been, not where it is going, replaying the known, in order to keep it doing the quiet essential work of turning experience into lasting memory. After everything we have traced tonight, here is a truth worth stating plainly and without embarrassment. Science still does not fully know why we dream. We have learned a great deal about when dreams happen, what brain states produce them, and what they draw upon. But the deepest question, why the brain generates these elaborate experiences at all, remains genuinely open. Researchers have strong, well-supported ideas. Dreaming may help consolidate memory. It may process emotion. It may simulate threats so we can rehearse them safely. It may simply be a byproduct of the brain's nighttime housekeeping. Each of these has evidence behind it, and they may all be partly true. But no single explanation has settled the matter completely, and honest scientists acknowledge that the full purpose of dreaming is not yet known. There is something refreshing in admitting this clearly. The mystery of dreams has not been fully solved by science, and pretending otherwise would be false. What science has done is move the mystery to a more honest and more interesting place, away from messages and prophecy and toward the genuine, unanswered question of why a sleeping brain builds whole worlds. That question remains one of the real frontiers of understanding the mind. We dream every night of our lives, and we still do not entirely know why. That, in its own way, is its own kind of wonder. Let us sit a moment longer with the limits of what we know, because the honesty of it matters. Researchers can now measure with real precision many of the things dreaming does. They can show that sleep, including the dreaming stages, improves memory, helps regulate emotion, supports learning, and aids the brain's processing of difficult experience. These effects are documented and robust, but there is a subtle gap between knowing what dreaming accomplishes and knowing why the experience of dreaming exists. It is possible that the rich, vivid story, like quality of dreams, is essential to these functions. It is also possible that the experience is in part a side effect of underlying brain processes that could have done their work without producing any felt experience at all. Which of these is true, science cannot yet say. We know dreams accompany valuable work in the brain. We do not fully know whether the dreaming, the felt experience itself, is the point or the byproduct. This is a profound and unresolved question sitting right at the meeting place of brain and mind. It is worth holding without rushing to fill it. The dream you have tonight will do measurable good for your memory and your heart. Whether the vivid experience of it is the cause of that good, or simply its beautiful shadow, remains for now unknown. Consider how strange and total the privacy of a dream has always been. For all of human history, every dream that has ever occurred has been witnessed by exactly one person, the dreamer, and no one else. You cannot show another person your dream. You can only describe it imperfectly in words, after it has already faded. No one has ever stood outside another mind and watched its dream unfold. Of all human experiences, dreaming has been among the most absolutely private, sealed within a single skull, leaving no trace anyone else could see. Across thousands of years, this seemed an unbreakable limit. The dream belonged to the dreamer alone, utterly, and by nature. Until very recently, that began to change. With modern brain imaging, scientists have started in crude and partial ways to glimpse something of what a sleeping brain is doing, even what it may be seeing. The wall that always stood absolute is for the first time showing the faintest cracks. Pause on the weight of that. A privacy as old as our species. The sealed inner theater of the dream is just now beginning to open ever so slightly to outside eyes. We stand at a genuine threshold, at the very start of being able to see from without what was always meant to be seen by one alone. Here is where the science of dreaming arrives at something that once belonged only to imagination. Using modern brain imaging, researchers have begun to reconstruct rough approximations of what a person may be seeing in their dreams, reading it, however crudely, from the activity of the brain itself. The method works by first learning how a person's brain responds to various images while awake, building a kind of dictionary linking patterns of brain activity to visual content. Then, by reading the brain during sleep and matching the patterns against that dictionary, scientists can make educated reconstructions of the dream's visual content, identifying broad categories of what the dreamer is seeing. The results are far from a clear picture, more like blurred impressions than a film. But they are real, and they are derived from the brain alone. This is a genuine scientific milestone, the first faltering steps toward reading a dream from the outside. What was across all of history the most private experience a human could have is beginning dimly to become visible to others through the machinery of the brain. It is humbling and a little awe-inspiring at once. The dream, that sealed inner world, is no longer entirely beyond reach. Science has begun gently and imperfectly to look inside and to glimpse the shapes moving through another person's sleep. Let us put a specific achievement to that frontier because it deserves to be named clearly. In a landmark effort, researchers in Japan set out to decode dream content directly from brain activity. They had volunteers sleep inside brain scanners, waking them repeatedly to ask what they had just been dreaming and recording the patterns of brain activity that accompanied each report. Over many such awakenings, they built a model linking specific patterns to specific categories of dream content: people, buildings, vehicles, and other kinds of things. Then they tested whether they could predict from the brain activity alone what category a person was dreaming about. They could with accuracy well above chance. The brain scans genuinely carried decodable information about the content of the dreams. This was among the first times anyone had reliably read out even the rough subject matter of dreams from the outside, and it marked a real turning point in the science of sleep. What had seemed permanently locked away proved, at least in part, to be readable. Reflect on what that means for the long human story of dreaming. For thousands of years, we could only listen to dreams described, never see them. Now, in a laboratory in Japan, the dreaming brain was made, however roughly, to give up its secrets, decoded into categories on a screen. The sealed theater had at last let in a watcher. Stand back and take in how far this places us from where we began. For nearly all of human history, the idea of reading a dream from outside the skull would have seemed not merely impossible, but absurd, a thing reserved for gods or magic. The dream was the very emblem of the unreachable, the private, the hidden. And yet here we are at a moment when that frontier is genuinely being crossed. When brain imaging and patient research are beginning to draw dream content out into the open where others can glimpse it, the work is early and rough. The images blurred, the categories broad. But the principle has been proven. Dreams are not, after all, utterly sealed away. They leave a physical signature in the brain, and that signature can in part be read. This may be the most remarkable turn in the entire science of dreaming. The mystery that for millennia drove people to imagine prophecy and divine messages is now being approached through the steady, careful methods of neuroscience, and it is yielding slowly real understanding. Consider where this could lead in the years ahead, the possibility of one day truly seeing another's dreams, or recording your own to watch on waking. The dream, the oldest private country of the human mind, is opening its borders for the first time, not to mystics, but to scientists patiently learning to read the sleeping brain. There is one more major idea in dream science worth knowing, and it ties together much of what we have explored. It is called the continuity hypothesis, and its claim is quietly powerful. Our dreams, it proposes, are continuous with our waking lives. They are filled with the same people, the same concerns, the same emotions and preoccupations that occupy us by day. Far from being a separate realm that breaks from waking experience, the dream world flows directly out of it, an extension of the life we are already living. Research into the content of dreams strongly supports this. What people dream about reliably reflects what fills their waking thoughts, their relationships, their worries, their work, their fears and hopes. The dream continues the day rather than departing from it. This is perhaps the most grounding way to understand dreaming. Your dreams are not messages from elsewhere, not windows onto distant futures, but a continuation of you, of your own ongoing emotional life, carried into the night and reflected back. When a dream seems to touch something real about your life, it is because your life is precisely what the dream was made of. The continuity runs all the way through. To understand your dreams, this theory gently suggests, look not to the future or the beyond, but to your own waking days, where everything the dream is built from already lives. Consider how a powerful dream actually affects a life, because here lies something true and important. A dream that moves us deeply can genuinely change things, but not in the way prophecy would suggest. It changes us. A dream of reconciliation may soften how you feel towards someone, and so change how you treat them tomorrow. A dream of loss may wake you with fresh tenderness for those you love, and so change how you hold them. A dream that stirs an old fear or a buried longing may bring it into the light, where you can finally face it. The dream alters the dreamer through the feeling it leaves behind, and the changed dreamer goes on to live and act a little differently. This is a real and meaningful power grounded entirely in the here and now. The dream does not reach into the future to rearrange events. It reaches into you, shifting your feelings, your awareness, your understanding, and through that shift it quietly touches the days that follow. So a meaningful dream is not wasted if it foretells nothing. Its meaning was never in prediction. It was in what it stirred and revealed within you, and in who you became, even slightly, on waking. The dream changes the future. Only through the oldest doorway there is the changed heart of the one who dreamed it. We come now to the quiet center of everything we have traced tonight. A dream does carry real information, genuine and worth attending to. But that information is internal. It is the honest shape of what you are feeling now, the true contour of a present worry, a present hope, a present love or fear. The dream reads your inner life with a candor your waking mind often avoids, and lays it before you in image and emotion. This is the real revelation of dreams, not knowledge of outward events to come, but a clear and honest reflection of your own inner state, the things that matter to you, the things unsettled in you, the things you carry. In this, dreams are genuinely revealing, genuinely worth listening to. They tell you the truth about yourself in the present moment, often more honestly than you tell it to yourself by day. So the next time a dream arrives with weight and meaning, you might receive it not as a forecast of the world, but as a message from yourself, about yourself as you are right now. Ask not what it predicts, but what it reveals, what worry it has given shape to, what hope it has quietly named. Understood this way, every meaningful dream becomes a kind of honest mirror, showing you the present truth of your own heart. We have come a long way tonight through the chemistry and architecture of the dreaming brain, through memory and bias, history and evolution, all the way to the edge of reading dreams from the outside. And yet, at the very end, something remains that all of this does not fully capture. Science can explain a great deal about how dreams are made, and why they feel as they do. But the sheer depth with which a dream can move a person, the way a single dream can shake us, comfort us, stay with us for a lifetime, still outreaches every complete explanation. There is a residue of wonder that the mechanisms, real and important as they are, do not entirely dissolve. This is not a failure of science, but an honest acknowledgement of where understanding presently stands. We can map so much of the dreaming mind and still be left moved and slightly mystified by our own dreams. Perhaps that is fitting. The dream has been a companion to humanity since before history, a nightly mystery inside every one of us, and even as we learn to read it, something of its power to move us remains its own. That enduring wonder, surviving all our explanation, may be the truest mysterious fact about dreams of all. Now let the threads draw together. We began with a feeling almost everyone has known, the sense that a dream reached forward and touched the days to come. We followed that feeling inward and found again and again that its source lies not beyond us but within, in a brain that burns nearly as bright asleep as awake, in a memory that keeps the rare match and quietly lets the thousands of misses go, in an emotional core that runs hot in the night, in the body's own faint signals, overheard in the dark, in the ancient human hunger to find a pattern and call it meaning. The dream does not show you the world's future. It shows you yourself, the honest shape of what you fear and hope and carry right now. And that, in the end, is the quiet turn at the heart of all of it. What seemed to be a window onto tomorrow was all along a mirror held up to today and to the dreamer holding it. The mystery was never out there, in the unknown. It was here, inside the most ordinary and most astonishing thing you do each night, when you close your eyes and your mind, unbidden, begins to build a world. Thank you for spending this time here with me. Good night.